My name's Paul Hayes, I'm a lifelong Doctor Who fan and I work for BBC Radio. Although what you're about to hear is a personal piece rather than something that's gone out on the BBC's airwaves, at least not in full. In my BBC capacity though, I was making various little radio bits and pieces for Doctor Who's 60th anniversary, and I thought it would be interesting to speak to some fans from outside of the UK to get their perspectives on this show which is such a part of British popular culture. I ended up speaking to 4 makers of YouTube reaction videos: Rosa from Portugal, Nicole from Germany, Oscar from Australia, and Jessica from the USA, all of whose channels you can find linked in the description. I made the piece and it was due to go out nationally on BBC Radio 4's PM programme in the week of the anniversary. But alas, that being a news show, things changed and it got dropped. That's the nature of these things, sadly. I did, however, manage to get it out on several BBC local radio stations on the day that the Star Beast aired. It was a nice piece and I was pleased with it, but I felt that the 4 of them had so many interesting things to say about the show that I wanted to get more of their interviews out there. So here, in longer form, is an international view of Doctor Who. This is the main entrance to Earl's Court Underground Station in London. Out here on the pavement is one of the very few places where you can still find, in the wild, an example of a certain large and distinctive piece of street furniture. The police box here isn't an original. You need the streets of Glasgow for some genuine survivors. This one was put in place in the 1990s, but it still attracts plenty of curious glances and people stopping for photos. The reason I'm here at the Earl's Court police box is to meet Oscar, a Doctor Who fan. Oscar, hello.
How are you doing?
Not too badly, thank you. Now, where in the world are you from, Oscar?
I am from Brisbane, Australia.
And we're in Earl's Court, which for many years was well known as the centre of the Australian community in London, but you don't live around here, do you?
No, I certainly do not. I had no idea.
You've come on a special visit, not just to see this police box, but it is the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who happening at the moment, this month, coming up on the 23rd. So is this almost a kind of pilgrimage?
Oh, absolutely. At the start of the year, I had the idea to be here for the 60th because I was, just a mere teenager when the 50th was around. I was like, oh gosh, I would love to be in the UK for an anniversary special. So I've been working full time. I was like, hey, let's be here for the 60th.
That's a lot of effort. It's a long way to come. Why does it mean so much to you?
Oh, it's my favourite show in all of time and space. I absolutely adore it, and I fell in love with the show more than 10 years ago, and it's like, weirdly enough, just walking through London, walking through everywhere, I've been able to see so many spots where they filmed the show, and it's been like I've been able to do a set tour without actually doing a proper set tour, so it's pretty cool.
So how did you first fall in love with the show? How did you discover it?
It was on in the background at my auntie's place, and I was so confused as to what the show was. It was the first James Corden episode, and I had no idea what was going on, but then I tuned in the next week, which was the Series 5 finale, and I understood nothing, but I absolutely loved it. And then from there, I've just been absolutely obsessed. It's my favourite thing.
It seems that a first encounter with the show initially causing some bafflement isn't an unusual response.
Hi everyone, I'm Rosa from Portugal and I'm a Doctor Who fan who does reactions on YouTube and just consumes a lot of Doctor Who. The first thing I ever saw of Doctor Who was the episode of Silence in the Library, and I watched it. I was just passing through the channels and I watched it and I was like, what is this? This is amazing. I have no idea what it is, and it just passed through. And then I was on Tumblr because into 2012, Tumblr was like a big deal. And I started watching things about the angels, and I found it very fascinating. And I was searching and I found what Doctor Who was. And I saw that the first episode of the series that I then didn't know it was a reboot was called Rose. And I was like, well, my name is Rosa. Rose. Okay, let's watch it. And I never stopped. I watched from Rose until the Angels Take Manhattan in 7 days.
Which is a lot of episodes.
Yes.
It's fascinating how you mentioned just getting that first little taste of it really grabbed you. Do you remember what it was that grabbed you just seeing that part of the episode?
The thing that I have in my head was when they are in the middle of the library and River's song comes through the doors and they have a shot from above with a circle on it with a light, and I found it so beautiful and so well shot. Well, I'm a photographer and I like lighting and things like that. So that shot really stuck in my head. So it was beautiful. And I didn't even knew it was Doctor Who. I just knew when I saw the episode again, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I've seen this. This is the thing that I saw one time, like at 3 a.m. in my living room. And yeah, I got hooked.
My name is Nicole. I'm from Germany and I am a reactor. I do have my YouTube channel called Nicologic Reacts, on which I react to Doctor Who episodes. I wanted to start my own YouTube channel and do reactions. I was thinking about TV shows that I could like watch and react to. And I was following those two other reactors watching Buffy because I really liked that show. And both of them were big fans of Doctor Who as well. They had all the stuff in the background and pictures on the wall, and they were talking about the show every now and then. So I got really curious if those people do love that show, Buffy, that I love as well. Maybe we do have the same taste. And this other show, Doctor Who, of which I had never heard of before, maybe it could be something for me. So yeah, that's how I got to know of Doctor Who. Like, I actually, growing up, I had never heard of that show before. Watching the very first episode, and I started with New Who, so I watched Rose as the very first episode. I kind of instantly fell in love with it. It was really strange for me because growing up, I didn't really like sci-fi, and I never watched anything sci-fi at all. So I didn't know if I would really like the show going into it, but I instantly clicked with the characters, and this very first episode was so odd to watch and so much fun. So I instantly clicked with it and really liked it so much.
Do you have an idea of what it is about the show that drew you in? Or is it... It's always a difficult question to answer, isn't it? But are there particular things about it that you know are the things that really made you like it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, watching the very first episode, like I said, it was the acting or the actors. I like Christopher so much, and Rose as well. And also, like I said, the way the show was scripted, it felt like a show that was set in our world, at least the very first episode, but everything that happened in it was so crazy. I specifically remember that scene when Rose's boyfriend gets eaten by the bin. That was so funny. And I remember laughing so much watching the very first episode. It's such a big universe. You have so many planets and alien species, time spans, and all those possibilities. So if, as a writer, you have a good story, you can write about anything. And that means for the viewer as well, if you get into an episode, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. Every single episode is like a surprise. Sometimes in a good way, and sometimes in a bad way, because that show can break your heart.
Another person who also first came to the show through her YouTube channel was Jessica of Seska Says.
I always knew that it existed. I guess whenever you're submerged in any sort of like different fandoms, you hear about all of these different things, but I didn't really get a good knowledge of how people were big fans of it until people started requesting it. My reactor friends, when I first initially started my channel, were pretty much all from the UK for some reason. And so they were really into it, and everybody really wanted me to watch it. So that's kind of, honestly, but I always saw like little maybe like posters here and there of Doctor Who. I just never watched it.
And when you started watching it, what did you make of it?
I thought it was odd. In all honesty, I think one of the best things about going on the Doctor Who journey is genuinely that every single person gravitates towards different things, different characters, different doctors, and all of that. And the first episode I ever watched was Rose. And it's just the thing that stuck with me was like the trash can scene and that whole situation. It was just so bizarre to me, and I was like, what am I watching?
Can you put your finger on what it is about it that you like? What is it that sort of keeps you coming back to watch it?
Oh, wow. There's probably many answers to that question, in all honesty. I do think one of the things that is so brilliant about it is the history of it, and not just how long it's been going on, but genuinely how much history of emotion and of the fandom and people loving different. I mean, everybody has a different favorite Doctor. Everybody has a different era that they really cling to. And for me, once I feel like you just start getting this notion of, yeah, it's going to be odd, or you could be doing a historical story next, or you could be in space. There's something for everyone, I think, whether it's a different Doctor that you like a little bit more, or a different type of story, or if you prefer like season-long arcs, you can find stuff with that, or if you like very standalone, like you can kind of find anything within Doctor Who. And that's the beauty of it. Whenever I sit down to watch the next story that I'm going through, I have no idea what is going to happen, what setting I'm going to have, what adversaries might show up or anything like that. And that's really a fun part of it.
Jessica had heard of Doctor Who before she started watching it, but among the other fans to whom I spoke, there's a variation in how known it is in their countries.
My friends never saw it. I just started to hook them up a little bit. I started from my friends in college, my brother, and my fiance started watching 2 years ago. He gifted me the box set of DVDs until the first season of Jodie. So we are slowly watching through them. In Portugal, is not really a big deal, but I think more and more people are discovering it, especially when Matt Smith started. When Matt Smith started, I think the popularity became a little bit more, but it's not like in England that is a household name.
My boyfriend told me that he knows people who watch the show, but me personally, I don't know anyone else. Just me.
Now, I get the impression, I haven't been to Australia, but I get the impression that of all the countries outside the UK, Australia is probably the one maybe where Doctor Who's made the biggest impression, where it's a show that even if people don't watch it, a lot of people will have heard of. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everyone in Australia should have heard of Doctor Who. It had been on our TVs for well over 50 years. I'm pretty sure they bought the rights, the rights to it in 1964. So they've pretty much gone on it straight away. And yeah, it's been an absolute institution in Australia. Absolutely.
So a bit like Britain, people will know what a TARDIS is and Daleks and things like that.
Very familiar with the TARDIS and Daleks. And the Weeping Angels as well. That's a huge one. Whenever I say to anyone, oh, do you know what Doctor Who is? They're like, oh, is that the moving statue show? Yeah, it's that.
Now, Australia is also a country as well where I guess you guys are much more familiar with British popular culture than in many other countries. There's been plenty of shows that have been popular over there in Australia that were from Britain, and of course Britain had a big influence over the development of Australian history, as we know. So how does it feel watching British shows and a show like Doctor Who? Does it feel like something from a different culture? Do you feel it gives you an insight into British culture? How does that sort of feeling come across from the show?
That's a very, very interesting question, actually, because I think there is a difference between Australian culture and British culture, but it's not by that much. I think we do have a lot of similar values. But yeah, Doctor Who's definitely an insight into that. I think Russell T Davies did the family dynamics really well and kind of showing off the English culture a bit better. So yeah, I don't know, that's an interesting question. I don't know how to answer that one. That's an interesting one.
And does it feel, for instance, I've seen you probably watch various American shows you watch as well, does it feel different to American shows?
Oh, most definitely. There is that beautiful British wit that I adore across a lot of shows over here that, I don't think American shows really have.
Oh, no. It's English all the way. It's not even a discussion, especially the first 5 seasons, 6 seasons. It's very, very British. With all the actors and the places they visit. The last season with Jodie, with Dan, is also very British with the football thing and everything else. It feels like you're visiting in some way, and it feels like you're glimpsing through the culture in some way. I know it's about an alien, but it's very British. It's not even comparable to an American show or a South Korean show.
And is that a good thing? Does that sort of add to the appeal of it, do you think?
Of course. It's completely different, especially because the TV scene is very Americanized. So having a British show, it's so refreshing and so quirky in some ways. There are subtle accents and subtle jokes that only the British can do, and it's very interesting having that little bit in the shows that we watch.
The British accent that the actors have was very hard for me to get into when I first started watching it, because I am used to watching shows that are like from the USA, and so the British accent was something, well, let's say, not so easy to understand for me when I started. I have had my problems.
Genuinely, I understand so many, like, the British accent so much better now than when I started. You can see me in videos sometimes with certain characters being like, what did they say? I did, like, if they talk too fast or whatever. And so that's the main thing for me that has really helped me with my channel, because I continue to watch Doctor Who and I feel like I understand pretty much everybody now. But in general, I think, yeah, it definitely feels like it's a different culture, but I feel so embraced by that culture, and like just I feel like it's been quite a long journey for me right now. It's been quite a while. So I feel like, I've gotten a good taste of another culture, even if it's just through the lens of Doctor Who.
For example, the episode Rose. In the very first episode, we have the Elizabeth Tower in it, and we have the London Eye in it. So they really showed you in the first episode already everything of the show is about the UK. Like, it's set in the UK, and you as a viewer, you can see it. Also, another thing that I noticed was how many times the sentence cup of tea was said. Because that doesn't happen in American TV shows. So that's a very British thing for me as well. And a very funny one.
Oscar and Jessica have also reacted to some classic Doctor Who, with Jessica currently midway going through it all right from the start. So how do they find it compares to the 21st century version?
It is so strange going back and watching the classics growing up with New Who, because I recently watched one from each of the classic Doctors and absolutely fell in love with it. I think Tomb of the Cybermen might be one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time now. But it's very unfamiliar but very familiar territory, and it's strange seeing all of the effort and connections New Who has made to Classic Who. Like, I've had a lot of revelations watching Classic Who being like, oh, that's where they got that idea, oh, that's what that reference is from. But I've really very much enjoyed it, and it's very much nice seeing how Doctor Who came to be, the classic history of it all. I absolutely adore it.
I think it does seem like the same thing, but oddly enough, the nature of Doctor Who is that it changes is that if you ever get to a point, and I'm saying a general you, but like you ever get to a point where you're not loving the companion as much or whatever, there is comfort in knowing it's going to change. And so that's kind of a difficult question to answer because yes, I do think it's the same vibe, but it's definitely, I think one of the constants of Doctor Who is that it changes, which is weird to say, but yeah.
One of the things I found really fascinating, both with you and some of the other actors who've looked at some of the older show, is that this people, half a century removed from the culture and the time, the place in which these episodes were made, it can still have a real emotional impact for you. I'm thinking particularly of when you watch the story where two of the Doctor's first companions, Ian and Barbara, left, and that made you really, really upset and really emotional. I found it fascinating that something that some people would look on as just being a kind of shoddy old black and white TV show that almost doesn't matter. You can strip the production constraints away, and for you it could still have that emotional impact. I found that really fascinating.
I adore Ian and Barbara, shout out, because I absolutely, they to me are top tier companions, if not my favorite companions. I still feel like they haven't been topped in some regards. And yeah, I was really upset when they left, I guess in the way of, I really loved them as companions and you want more of the people that you gravitate towards. However, I also thought that they were really great with helping the Doctor's growth as well. And I think that that's something doesn't get talked about enough, is how much like the first Doctor actually grew within his time, and how I feel like Ian and Barbara helped facilitate that and make him kind of fall in love with having companions.
Do you have any particular favourite moments?
Oh, I've got so many of those. There are so many special moments in every single series. One that I remember, for example, is from the episode Midnight, and the scene where David Tennant talks to that, I'm so sorry, I don't remember her name, to that actress that is possessed by...
Leslie Sharp.
Oh, thank you. And he's talking to Leslie, and they are like repeating each other's sentences and staring each other in the face. That scene gives me shivers to this day. Every time I watch it, it's so good.
So what other steps, what other plans have you got for your Doctor Who pilgrimage this November?
I will be going to Camden Market right after this because I believe they filmed some of the 60th stuff there. And I will be eventually heading over to Cardiff to see where they filmed a lot of new Doctor Who. And heck, I might try and see if I can meet Russell T Davies. It won't happen, but that would be nice.
Well, and what do you make of being here with a police box standing here out on the street?
It is very, very nice. I knew of this. This is quite famous, this police box, isn't it?
Well, there is a line in the show. There's an episode called The Bells of St. John where the bad guys in it have been looking for the TARDIS all night and they finally think they found it the next morning, and one of the characters says, well, let's hope we're right this time. Earl's Court was an embarrassment. So, and here we are at the Earl's Court police box.
This is it. This is the one. And I'm pretty sure, is this the one on Google Maps where if you try and go on Street View and you click on this box, you get the interior of the TARDIS, which I think is very cool and a nice little touch.
I'm actually heading to London on the 1st of December. So I'm actually going to be in England when the second episode of the specials are coming out.
Oh, how exciting. Was that deliberately planned or was that coincidence?
No, it was just a coincidence. My fiance wanted me to see the Christmas lights in London. I have visited before. I have actually gone to the museum in Cardiff and the Museum of Doctor Who in Cardiff, which was amazing in 2016. But now I wanted to see the Christmas lights because I like Christmas. So we are going to go there, and it's going to be the first time I'm going to watch Doctor Who in England.
Thanks again to Rosa, Nicole, Oscar and Jessica for speaking to me. I'm sorry I was only able to include a tiny fraction of their comments in the finished BBC radio piece and that it didn't end up going out nationally. But hopefully you've enjoyed hearing from them here as much as I enjoyed speaking to them all.